Hello, it's time for some extreme economics. This is a good topic. Hyperinflation. Hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is when inflation goes over 50%. Inflation's greater than 50%. So, if inflation, the price of stuff next year goes up more than 50%, again and again, every year, more than 50%, that is considered hyperinflation. So, now what causes hyperinflation? Well, there's generally three things. The first is a loose credit policy. Loose means like lots, credit means loans, and policy means government policy. So, the government is creating a lot of loans. The government is creating a lot of loans. They're printing money and they're just giving it out and lending it, and it's just interest rates are low, and then inflation starts to just build on itself. As inflation gets higher, people borrow more money to buy stuff. Because if you can borrow money at 1% and you can buy gold that's increasing every year at 30%, you make 30% a year on borrowed money. And so that's why hyperinflation happens. It's really great if you're able to borrow money and buy stuff like gold, because you can have like all this money and the government kind of destroys itself. So it's kind of fun. But on the other hand, hyperinflation can be caused by a debt default. A debt default. Debt means the loans, and default means not paying. So the loans are not being paid. So if we have a debt default, say for example, Argentina did a debt default in 2001. Argentina did a debt default in 2001. Sometimes that can create hyperinflation. Like Zimbabwe has hyperinflation. That's the biggest example right now of hyperinflation. But you know, a debt default doesn't always mean hyperinflation, because you know, it's not like the country is completely dependent on getting money from foreigners. You know, like the United States, if they cut their consumption by 30%, they'd balance their trade deficit. They'd have imports and exports would be the same, so they wouldn't have this inflation spiraling out of control. Because when you default on your debt and people don't lend you stuff, it becomes very expensive to buy from foreigners, because you have to first export something. And if you have to import before you export, you have to get loans, and that's very expensive. So that's why hyperinflation happens when a debt default situation occurs. So, the third reason for a hyperinflation is a lack of production manufacturing capacity. Okay? So lack of production capacity is like, remember Germany when it was after the war and the entire country was destroyed. So they couldn't build anything. So all they could do is print money to try to have people buy stuff from other countries. And if you're not building anything, then you're not exporting, and your currency drops, so prices increase, and when it gets to 50%, it just kind of gets out of control, and that is hyperinflation.